Hey, welcome back to That's What He Said. I'm your host, Natalie, and this is a podcast about dating. Before you watch, make sure you subscribe, follow, like, comment, rate, review, and share the show. Let's find out what he said.
Okay, we had to cheers. That's a ritual.
Cheers!
Cheers! Yay. Thank y'all so much for coming.
Yeah, Thank you for having us.
Also, the raspberry rose.
Is that your first sip?
I tried it.
Okay,
it's
okay,
good.
okay,
it's good. Yeah. I don't know why when I was like picking from choices, I was like, this one gives Carley.
Yeah, I do. I like that one. And strawberry lemon is very Zach. That's perfect.
Yes. Okay, so I'm here with Carley, Nunn Davis, and Zach Davis, the infamous. So today we're going to be talking about their marriage story. Our podcast is mainly geared towards singles, obviously. Typically, I'm interviewing single men and single women, but sometimes we want to hear from those who have done it and gotten past the finish line. So I'm excited to interview y'all. Also honored.
We're excited to be here and to chat.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
So, a little introduction. Carley, tell us about you. You're an artist.
Yeah.
Share all of that.
I am Carley. I am an independent artist, content creator, but first and foremost, definitely a daughter of the King. I'm a big Jesus girl over here. So everything that I do and feel called to do, we were just saying this, but those things that I just listed, I kind of hold like this. So I am whatever God is calling me to at the time. But independent artist, singer, songwriter. I release music, I feel called to that. So that's my thing.
Yes. And Zach, you're a baseball player.
Yes.
And funny guy.
I just finished up playing 7 years of professional baseball.
Okay.
Played 4 years in college, and now
7
we're out
years
here
that's kind of confusing. 4 years in college.
4 years in
7
college.
years pro ball. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a long time. So what's your plan now?
I'm figuring it out. I'm in that transition.
Hey, you and me both.
Yeah.
Such a good question. Going like
I'm
this,
glad
like,
you
all
asked
right,
that.
Lord,
Yeah,
what you
exactly.
got? What you got?
Yeah.
I'm kind of in that transition phase.
Yeah.
Carly's been such a great supporter of my dream. Now I feel like, it's my turn to kind of, we came back out here to LA to be in a place where she can kind of focus on her thing. Mm-hmm. And as I'm transitioning and kind of finding, what my thing is, I'm here kind of supporting, her as best as I can. So that's what I'm doing right now.
And we also do enjoy doing content together. So I think that's something that there's been a lot of favor on.
Can we talk about Vine?
Vine.
Oh
It started on Vine. It did. The origin story of Zach and Carley, and that's like what we are, on our couples accounts is like, it did not start back in the Vine days. You weren't like, no one knew that social media could be a job. We didn't know what it was going to get to. We were doing it because it was fun.
Yeah.
And
Vine doesn't exist anymore, right?
R.I.P.
Okay.
I mean, like,
don't
the
know
videos
why.
have
What
been
happened?
just
They're
completely
gone.
wiped too.
I don't know.
We can't find any of our.
Yeah, it's sad.
Other than
Other than the ones that we
we've saved. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. We did not mean to.
I'm gonna clip it in. If you'll send it to me, the original one.
I can send it in.
Okay.
Babe, I'm hungry. You ready to eat? So my ex texted me.
What'd he say?
So especially the one that like really, really blew up. That was kind of the first thing. It was so funny at the time. It was like pulling teeth. I was like, no, I feel like.
Was that real or did you skit? Like, was that a skit?
So it has happened. Okay. It has happened in he loves a video game.
Well, so like she was saying, I wasn't really into like making videos. I didn't want to be out on the internet.
Yeah.
It was like kind of be private,
Especially back then.
Exactly.
It was weird.
It wasn't a thing. And so I want to say that moment was actually pretty real for me. I think she had kind of had the idea and I was playing the video. I was actually playing the video game.
Okay.
And I think we were in that moment where she was actually ready to go
I had an idea. I was like, I have an idea. That's usually a lot of our videos that honestly do the best are the ones where like, I got an idea. And then we just, it's
like in the moment.
Something will happen. And then I'm like, wait, that was hilarious. We got to just redo it and film it because it was so good. So a lot of them come from things that organically happen in our relationship.
But you got to kind of run it back.
You do have to. Yeah. But that was, his heart has totally changed as far as like really enjoying to do it and so we like doing that together, and shout out to Vine.
Yeah.
It started it all.
Yes. They're so funny. I don't use TikTok and stuff like that, but I have a TikTok.
Yeah.
And then now for the podcast. But I would literally like only go and be like, I wonder what they're posting, and like literally just the only search is that Carley. I'm like, I feel like such a stalker, but like I don't. This is the only account.
You know what's funny though is people will say that, be like, not to be weird, but and I was like, we're putting these videos out in hopes that people are watching them, so thank you for watching. You know what I mean? It's like, no, please watch them, because it is something that we feel called to
funny.
do.
And it's like,
that's
wholesome.
our heart. Is like,
thank you.
Is we just want to make people laugh and you know, sprinkle in some relationship stuff, some faith stuff, but like at the end of the day, we really enjoy doing it. So, you know, whatever God has in that world, we're down for. So that's part of his transition too, is we're diving into that more.
Yeah. And I want to say this too, like, because we have all walks of life on the show, and people that watch the show too, like people who believe in God, people who don't believe in God, Christian, everything. And so it's not a Christian podcast, but it just so happens, coincidentally, not coincidentally, that just a lot of people who of faith come on the show.
Yeah.
And so I preface that just to say, like, that's never my agenda. I don't ever say like, hey, please talk about your faith.
Oh, no, that
ever,
just,
not once. It just happens. You know, it's part of their story organically, and I love it.
That's who we are, you know, and so it comes out. And just our talk.
Something that I have adapted recently is the world doesn't ask for permission to be the world. The world doesn't say, is it okay if we show you this? Is it okay if we do this? And I think that I operated, especially out here in the industry, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but I felt like I had to ask for permission. Like if I felt like I, you know, wanted to encourage someone or pray for someone, like, hey, I don't want to be weird. And I'm like, I'm done asking for permission to just be like, this is because I really believe that it can encourage people. It can impact people. And I want to do that and be a facilitator of that. So I've kind of tossed that of like, I've tossed that filter away of like, I don't want people to think I'm too. And I'm like, no,
people.
I'm like, you know, cause anyways, that's kind of my heart behind that. And I know that it's not a Christian, but I'm like, well, this is,
no, you say whatever you want. That's for them to know. So they're not like, oh, this is a Christian podcast. No, keep watching. So tell your story of how, like, y'all's love story.
It's such a good story.
I guess I'll start.
You want to start?
Yeah. Okay. So we met at a high school graduation party. I was invited by one of my really close friends, and it was supposed to be kind of like you bring a date to the cabin is where we were at.
Okay. It was like going to be a weekend long thing. So we didn't go to the same high school. We went to different high schools. But we were invited to a mutual friend's graduation party. I didn't know the person throwing the graduation party. I was asked as a date.
So my friend
of someone else.
Yes. So my friend knew a guy, was good friends with a guy who went to her school, and like I said, we were supposed to bring dates, and she was essentially
you were both on a date with someone else.
So I didn't bring anyone. I had just gotten out of my high school relationship. I was going to college to play baseball, and just got out of my relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she got brought by another guy, and that's where we met. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, it happened. So I had just gotten out of a little bit of a, you know, rebellious high school relationship, and was like, I know. Well, it was like, I say rebellious because my parents weren't really excited about it. And so I was kind of like dating, seeing him behind their back. And I had wrapped that up. I was so excited to go to this. I was like, this is going to be so fun. My parents almost didn't let me go. They were like, you're not going to a weekend-long lake house ride with boys. You're not doing that. Like, get out of here. Luckily, the mom of the guy that I went with called, and they knew each other. They're like, hey, there's going to be chaperones, there's parents, whatever. They barely let me go.
Wow.
So we pull up, everyone meets at the person throwing the party's house, and then we're all going to tailgate to the lake house. And I walk in, I didn't see him. He was playing a video game.
Weird.
Everybody was sitting around. So I didn't see him, but I guess eventually he had switched. You know, someone else tapped in and was playing, and he was sitting on the couch. And I remember someone made a joke, and everyone, you know, busted out laughing. And I remember making eye contact with him when we were laughing. And I am not I've never had this experience, ever. Didn't even think that it was, you know, I thought it was this is a cheesy movie thing. literally laughing, made eye contact, and I was like, who is that? What I didn't know was he thought the same thing, ended up.
And so I go into the kitchen. This is all the same moment.
Yeah.
After this happens, I go into the kitchen and I'm with the guy who's putting on this party, or, and I'm like, who's that on the couch? Like, whatever. And he's like, oh, that's Carley,
He was basically like, oh, she's, she came with this guy, like.
Ends up telling me, like, yeah, she's with this guy or whatever.
But I wasn't really. Like, I was just brought as a date. Like, I wasn't really. Anyways, from that moment, that's like the most important, like, detail-y worth sharing the details. Was like, whoa. Because from that moment, throughout the whole weekend, it was, when you're just, like, aware of someone, you just, like, you're sitting next to them, you're not touching, but you can, like, feel, like, you're like, oh my gosh.
Just
like that energy
yeah.
and that. It was, I always knew where he was. I was always aware of where he was in the room. Anyways, he ends up talking to one of my good guy friends who was there, asking him what the deal was. He talked to my date and was like, what's going on? And he was like,
Zach did?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So I ended up asking a couple of guys, like, what the deal was, like if they were actually together or not, you know, and it came back that they were just friends.
I can like see this happening, especially like a high school party. Like there's like whispering over here and then like over here and then like, is he watching? What's he asking about? Like I can like see the whole thing happening.
Yeah,
it was a movie, honestly.
It was. I would love to go back and be a fly on the wall that weekend and just watch it all unfold, because it was genuinely like we had known each other for forever. I mean, we were like, both nights we were there, people are partying and doing all these things. We're up till like 6 a.m. just talking. We didn't hold hands. We didn't kiss. It was just like we could not stop talking to each other. But this was after he had kind of gotten the like, okay, from my date of like, no, we're just friends. Like, you're good, which was respectful.
Very respectful. Yeah, I love that.
And honestly, I didn't know what was going to come from it. I just knew that I was interested in that moment, right at the very beginning. You know? And so, of course, I wanted to be, I didn't want to step on any toes or anything like that. Yeah. So
then when did like boyfriend and girlfriend happen?
So she ended up going, this was right before we were going to our first year of college. She goes to Baylor her first year. I went to Texas Tech my first year. And then we ended up being like Facebook official.
That like February, I think.
February, March.
That March.
But we were school year.
Yes.
Okay.
But we had been
the spring semester. Yeah.
We were
y'all visiting each other?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like we were talking. Yeah. The entire time.
We haven't stopped talking since that weekend. But
that's crazy.
It became official that March.
Okay.
But yeah, there were some, and my parents know about this now, but there were many no, I'm in Waco, I'm still here, and I was like, had driven to Lubbock.
Oh.
I did some secret.
Oh wow.
some secret visits.
both ways.
Just trying to make it work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so then y'all did long distance for a while.
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years.
7 or 8 years.
Yeah, so 2013 and then until
2021.
COVID.
Well, but then we did another baseball season of long
so it was about 7 years, 7.5 years.
So especially at that age, like that is so rare to like decide to do that and then to be able to like stick it out. I did long distance with my high school boyfriend my freshman year of college, and it went very south.
Yeah.
And granted, he was not the best guy, but like it's crazy to me that y'all in your 18-year-old brains were like, we're gonna do this and like fight for this and continue to do that like through your 20s. Like, what made y'all decide to fight for that?
You know what's funny is it was not a conscious decision of, we didn't know it was going to be like how it was going to be 7 years of this. We knew what we felt, and it was just a decision we kept making.
Yeah, that's good. Like, we didn't know what was going to go into it when we first met. We just knew that we liked each other. So it was like, okay, so what do we need to do now? Okay. And then after the first year, she makes her decision where she's going to move out.
I dropped out of Baylor and moved to LA to pursue music.
So now we're not 5 years. We're not 5 hours apart. We're now.
That's even crazy.
It's crazy.
Right
I'm sure.
away.
Was everybody in your life like, what are you doing?
Oh, absolutely. And our parents thought we had lost it. My parents now tell us, yeah, we were talking, but they were talking between them, just being like, yeah, it's
Just
not
give it a
gonna
little
last.
time,
Like,
like,
it,
it'll
just give it
fizzle
time.
out.
It's
Oh,
long
really?
distance.
Yeah.
He's a college athlete.
Right.
She's, you know, she's in LA and these
Yeah.
studio sessions with all these guys and whatever. And it was like, everyone was, I don't know if anyone really
Nobody
thought
was really
that-
like
no,
behind
no one-
you.
Well, I think they were like, sure, we support you. You know,
Like,
that's
it's
sweet.
like if
Oh,
that's what you want, kind
that's
of thing.
sweet. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to work out, but like,
Just
you know, give it time.
being realistic, I think, is just what the
Yeah.
thought is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to it, we had no idea what we were kind of signing up for, but kind of what she said, it was just like, you know, we were enjoying it. We liked each other a lot, and it just kind of week after week, month after month, it just, I don't know. It's hard to really explain, but that's kind of how it was. And then we also told each other, we know that we're going after these huge dreams along with doing this long distance. If it
Yeah.
ever became or came to a point where, you know, we felt like we were growing apart, or, you know, you needed more time to do that. Like, we never wanted to step in before, you know, what it was that we were going after.
Like, you didn't want to get in each other's way of
Exactly,
pursuing your
yeah.
dreams.
Right. And you know what's interesting is reflecting back, long distance was so hard, but early on, I remember being like, why did we meet at this age? Like, this seems like so unnecessary. Why couldn't we have met when we were older?
Yeah.
But it was so intentional because there was, as difficult as long distance was, knowing that it was very much like, I love you, like, go chase your dream. Like, I love you, I'm here, like, go do your thing. And having that, when things were confusing or not working out, or were tough out here for me or tough for him, you know, whatever he was doing at the time, it was like a constant. But I wasn't distracted with dating, you know, and I was pursuing my thing, and I had
that
him.
makes
It was
sense.
also, he also wasn't, we weren't in the same place, so there was less of a distraction. Like, it was
Yeah.
honestly kind of a bittersweet time that we look back on and we're like, yeah, it was hard, but it was kind of like great. There's a lot of communication stuff that we learned from it too, that we had
I
to work
bet,
through.
yeah.
Because it's not, if you get in
Was
an
that
argument,
like painful? Like those 7 years being
There-
apart?
absolutely. There was
Yeah.
there was so many tough moments, and just an ache of like, I just want to hang out. I just want to
Yeah.
like go to the grocery store together.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to be able to go watch a movie. You know, just very simple things, just being in that person's presence. But we also felt like the time that we were spending was so intentional and purposeful for the things that we were chasing at that time. So it was, it was hard, but I mean, worth it, obviously.
Yeah.
You know,
And honestly, it helps us now, I think, to look back on like what we've kind of gone through, and to, you know, almost listen back on like what our thoughts were
yeah,
then. You know, we only, you know, I wish we could go to the grocery store together, right? So now when we are at the grocery store and we're taking that for granted, it's like you can feel,
you can recall.
you can recall exactly
that feeling and not
feeling
remember,
of
like-
being like, hey, you remember when you
Wow.
weren't together, you didn't see each other for 6 months, like,
Yeah.
you know.
6 months? That's
I
Oh
think
my
that was
gosh!
the longest period of time.
One baseball season, I didn't go and visit him at all. I couldn't. Like, it was, we were
Money was tight.
money and
Yeah.
schedules, and we look up and seasons over. I'm like, I haven't seen you in 6 months. This is crazy.
That is crazy.
That was the longest we went. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so part of what we do on the show is I typically pose a topic question to the men primarily. That is a question that women want or need to know the answer to. So the topic question that we have today is, when you know, question mark. Because
You know.
I hear that all the time.
Sure.
When you know, like whether it's from couples that are together, whether it's in a movie, like that's just such a common statement. I don't want to call it a cliche because I don't know if it's a cliche.
Right.
But
Let's find out.
am genuinely asking, because I'm like, if it's true, how did you know? Like,
Yeah.
please tell us.
Yeah.
So when,
Please
like,
tell me.
when did y'all know? Because you actively chose to like put in this fight of long distance against what people are telling you, definitely what the world's telling you.
Oh, yeah.
So at what point between like day one and now did y'all know, and maybe that's different for both of you,
Yeah.
like, did you know, like, this is my spouse, like this is the person I want to marry?
Do you want to? Do you want to go first?
I can go first. I do think if you know is a true thing. I think there's not one blanket statement that you can say for everyone. I think everything is different situations, right? But I do think that it's a real thing. When we first met, like I said a little bit earlier, I was just following what I enjoyed, what I liked, you know, and it just kind of kept going, and, you know, now we are here. But I would say when I knew, at least when I felt like it was like the point was,
I feel like
Go ahead.
before. No, I was just gonna say. I feel like there's two, like no's. For me, it's a like, you know. Well, I agree. I do think when you know, you know. But and for me, it's a kind of like inexplainable. Like you can't really articulate the feeling, but it's kind of like a deep knowing, like a sense of peace. For me, it was like
A sense of peace.
it's a sense of peace, and it's a sense of, I wouldn't say easy. I don't think relationships or marriages are easy. I think that they do take work. You have to fight for them. But I also believe that there's a simplicity when it is your person, and when you have developed that relationship. And so to me, there's a two-part. It's no, I know that this is my person. Like when we were 18, I was like, oh yeah. I wasn't thinking this is my husband, right? Like no 18-year-old is thinking that. It was, which is why we dated for so long, distance plus being so young. But when we knew we were ready to get married, it was a different like thing. So for me, it was like, I knew that I knew when I met him. I think without being conscious of that thought, if
like
that makes
what
sense.
it was specifically.
It was
I guess that
a
makes
feeling.
sense.
It was like, you know, and even through the years of long distance, I was meeting people, and there was no one else that I was like, there was never once where I was like, I really want to like explore that with them. Not once.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I feel like that's like God's protection.
it was so much protection.
I would say the same. It was the same thing for me as well.
And I want you to continue. I just was saying, like, for me, there's a two-part. Like, I knew that I wanted to be with him from that moment of eye contact. I knew that we were ready to get married.
Is that love at first sight?
I think it is definitely like, I think there's so much that goes into love, but I think that it was definitely an attraction, but it was so much bigger because the guy that was my date was attractive. It was like, it wasn't just attraction. It was like, whoa, like I was a very weird, like, that I got to meet that person. I got to know that person.
Okay.
So I knew that I wanted to be with him. I knew that he was my person in each stage, in each day, in each, you know, time I'm waking up and choosing that. But when I knew that we were ready to get married was different. So that's what I was going to say. Those are two different things.
I think that's a pretty
Would
good
you say
way
that's a great?
That's a really good way to put it.
So when did you know that you wanted to like ask her to be your wife? Yeah.
It was after we spent more time together. You know, like we did so much long distance.
Yeah.
We had gotten
It's
down to
hard.
communication. We knew that, you know, we had fun together when we visited.
Yeah, like I feel like that's kind of a part that goes into it, right? You have like checklists or things that you are kind of expecting. They're kind of requirements of like what you would want your husband or your wife to be like, or, you know.
Okay.
And
you're kind of seeing those unfold as like the
Exactly.
more you spend time together.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
I knew that I wanted a woman of faith. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I obviously was attracted to her. She was super funny, and I think that was like one of the biggest things that like attracted to me, like at the very beginning. So there were just things that were just being checked off, and then now we're being hit with, you know, long distance. So now I'm not able to do my check of like, how does she deal with
Day-to-day stress.
if someone cuts you off, and does she just kind of lose her, like, just, you know what I'm saying? Like, is this somebody that I can like
does she leave the towel on the bed? Like,
right. And that's wouldn't have been a deal breaker for me, but just there's things that, you know, I feel like you have to go through or see how this person, you know, goes about it before you can say, you know, this is my wife. I'm going to be with them for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So.
And that checklist is for sure different for everyone, right? Like,
And the timeline is different too, you know? I know some people, you know, date for a year and they know, you know? But just for our situation,
it was unique.
It took us
It was a little
bit.
like 9 years, I think.
So something that's interesting is like what you're describing of like that feeling like in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, let me speak for myself. I'm not going to say all single people, but like, I feel like when I've had this like this energy with someone that I'm like, I have to see what that is
For
or
sure.
pursue that. it, like, y'all had that initial, like, let's call it a spark.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but you still, like, were patient with it. Like, y'all didn't jump and get married at 20.
Mm-mm.
And I see that happen a lot with single people now. It's like you get that connection and it's like you make the mental commitment of, this is my person. I can feel it. This is my soulmate. Like, I can't explain
And you
like,
run
love
with
at
it.
first sight. And you're like, so I'm going to do, like, I'm going to give all of me. And
Right.
put everything into this because this is it.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, being like, I don't know what you were thinking. Like, I think this is it. I feel it. I know it. But I'm also going to, like, be patient and
Right.
pursue these other things that I want, my dreams, what God calls me to. Like,
Yeah.
there's this
Yeah.
patience, especially, like, on your part, too, because you're saying, like, you were like, well, I knew she was my person. Like, she's checking all the boxes, but I'm just still making sure. Like, we hadn't spent
Yeah.
enough time together. And,
Yeah.
like, that takes a lot of discipline and, like, self-control or just, like, self-awareness.
Yeah.
To not just be like, I'm all in, I'm moving to LA, or like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm dropping my dreams to just be with him.
Yeah. So I think that I feel like I can't take as much wisdom credit for it as much as it was, we're both really passionate about pursuing the dreams and the callings and doing those things. And so it was never a question of, I'm going to give it all up for you, because that's just not how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, we had to be growing in the same direction. And we had said, like, we're not going to force it. If we're growing, you know, apart, or you meet someone, like, open communication, honest conversation about that. But so much of why that didn't happen, it wasn't like, we're just going to go get married and this is it, and like screw everything else, was because it was like, no, I'm going to go do this. You're going to either be here or you're not. And I want you to be here. And I want to give time. And it was balancing that, you know, visiting when we can, having conversations, open communication, like I said, being honest and about things that were going on. But it was the deep desires and dreams that I think we both had that didn't allow us to just push the gas pedal.
Yeah.
Go straight to marriage and kids and you know, forsaking all else.
I think that was a part of the checklist as well, you know. I had always, I remember growing up and I would tell my mom, how do you take one vacation a year? Like, I just don't get how, like, you know, I had always felt myself like having this, and it wasn't materials that it wasn't that for me. It was just being able to, like, kind of just have, like, this freedom that I just, you know, that's kind of what I wanted. And so
having a partner that values that's like, okay, yes, we will sacrifice to make sure that we're
exactly
crafting the life that we want.
Exactly.
Yes.
And she had, you know, I didn't know if she was going to be a huge pop star, but I saw that she wasn't trying to be,
I didn't
really
just
say
forsake it all. I was like,
wasn't
I'll just
like,
figure it out and we'll just be together. Yeah.
Yeah.
like she wasn't settling for just something that was just like normal.
Something that I didn't feel called to. And I want to be clear, just because I know that there's a lot of, I don't think calling or purpose or dreams have to be these big, grandiose, crazy things.
No.
And so I don't, you know, that was what we have felt called to and was important for us in our partnership and in our, you know, who are we going to build our life with? Because it wouldn't have worked if either of us were with someone who maybe felt called to, you know, a corporate life or felt called to this business or this teacher. All of that is, everyone has a different calling. So I never want to make it sound like that's, you know, a bad thing. It was just a part of our checklist. Yeah.
And so that was, I think, goes into why, like, we didn't just give it up.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people who, like, have thought they knew, like, because I've had moments of that where I'm like, gun to my head, like, this is him.
it. Yeah.
And then it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Like, if you even have an answer to that, because I know that's a huge question. But because you've been through, like, this knowing, like, you are aware of what that feels like, and you're saying, I do think that it's true. What would you say to somebody they thought they knew and then they were wrong?
Yeah. I can't relate to it necessarily in our relationship, but I can absolutely relate to that feeling in opportunities I've had, in situations I've been in, whether it was this startup label or this manager. Oh, this is it. This is the opportunity.
Yeah.
And gun to my head, same thing. This is it.
Yeah.
This is happening. So I relate deeply and have so much empathy for that feeling because it's been a part of my story, not in my relationship, but in my life. And it sucks. And it is like, it is.
It's confusing.
It's confusing. You start questioning yourself and your own judgment. And you're like, okay. And then for me, in those moments, it sent me down questioning so many other things, right? It's like, maybe I don't know anything. Like, maybe I should just, like, not do it. Like, maybe I should just stop it. Like, you know? So what I have said to myself and what other people who've poured into my life have said in those moments, and I think it could apply to what you're asking for in regards to the relationship aspect, is if you feel that, like, the feeling and the excitement and the knowing that you felt with that, and it wasn't it, like, imagine what you're going to feel like and what it's going to be like when the right thing comes. And that is, I think, what I've, like, held on to is that of, like, wow, God, I really thought that this was it. And I was so excited about this. If this isn't my person, I cannot wait to see what I'm going to feel like when it is my person, because that was crazy. That felt so good. And I thought I knew.
Until it didn't.
And so I think it goes back until it didn't, right? I think it goes back to this, like, trust and just being like, okay, and holding everything with this, like, you know, instead of grass, because we held our relationship like that. It wasn't like, no matter what, we are going to make it. It was very open-handed.
I was trying to describe. Y'all were very, like, I love this thing, but
I really, really hope it works out. Yeah. But if it's not, like, it wasn't like, I'm going to make this happen no matter what, you know? Yeah. But we were careful with the relationship. We did, there was a protection around it. Just, we weren't, like, doing crazy things to be like, oh, we're just going to be together no matter what. It was, you know. Yeah, I don't know. You want
did y'all ever almost break up?
I don't think there was a time that we ever almost broke up. And that is crazy to reflect on. Is like, oh, we've been together for, like, this whole time. But I know that there were, and you can speak to this because I know you've talked about this before, but not questioning, is this my person, but, like, the timing of it. Yeah. He felt that a few times.
I would say it wasn't, like, a real thing, but there was definitely times where I had thought, like, you know, why did I meet her at this time, right?
Like out of frustration?
In a point where it was just like,
like, should we break? I don't think it was, I think we need to break up. But there was should we break up? Is this not the right time? Should we not and come back later?
My thought was more of like, and sometimes too, my thought was, would she or I grow more if we weren't together, and then we could come back together? But it was never, ever that, like...
That's scary. I just got goosebumps.
It's scary.
I'm glad you didn't do that.
I know.
There was never, ever, you know, a time where I was thinking to break up because I didn't want to be with her or there was somebody else. It was always I just questioned it, because I didn't know, you know, if there was something, if I was, like, maybe holding her back from something or, you know, whatever, because, you know... Yeah. There was that pool where it's like, we want to see each other, you know? So, you know, sometimes, I don't know, I just felt like we put the relationship, it was just a balancing act, right? Of, like, where you'd have to put the relationship first sometimes, and then, you know, that would take away from some opportunities that you might have or whatever. And so I kind of struggled with that a little bit, but never to the point where I wanted to not be with her. Yeah.
Was there ever, like, I know that it goes for both men and women, but, like, especially for men, like, was there ever, like, a lot of temptation around you? I mean, you're also, like, an athlete, like, good looking guy, star athlete, at a big SEC school, right?
That was Big 12.
Big 12,
Big 12,
yeah. Like, I don't know if they were flocking, but I would imagine they were. A little bit, at least.
Yeah,
I don't know.
mean, they were definitely.
She's like, what?
No, they were definitely.
Like, no, tell me. No, I'm kidding. I know.
I'm just curious because I feel like that's something that maybe because I've like known you for so long and, like, followed along with what's going on. There was always this curiosity of, like, is he really not cheating on her? Is he really not like getting?
And like, you're not the only one who has asked that or thought that. I mean, my parents have been like.
Maybe I didn't think that about you because I knew you. Yeah. And I was like, that just didn't really cross my mind. But I'm like, I don't know this guy. Like, what is going on here? You know?
Yeah. No, it definitely was a thing.
Not cheating. Cheating was not a thing. But
no, it definitely was a thing where, I don't even know how to say it. Like, it's just such a weird thing. Like, there were girls who were obviously interested in me. But I don't know. For me, it was like, I was never really caught up in like trying to like date. Like, it wasn't a big thing to have somebody there with me because of like what we had whenever she was with me. So whenever I was like meeting these people, there was never ever a time where it was like, oh, this would be so much better than what I have right now.
Even through the convenience,
even with
it.
the distance. Like,
Yeah.
What keeps you like as a man? Like how? Because I'm like,
He doesn't have it in him. That's what,
like,
that's what we talk about.
There wasn't a temptation just to be like, screw it all. I'm just gonna go like see what this bachelor life is about. Like, that's a good thing. But I'm just it's like how it's so abnormal in the culture that we live in. So what do you think it is in your life that made you that way? Or like made you choose that?
I don't know. It's just a weird thing because I don't know. I guess just how I was raised to be respectful and like if it was just like if I wanted to do something, then I guess I would have just broken up with her. And she's that far away, I could have called her and just said, "Hey, it's not really working out," and then went and gone and did whatever I wanted to do. You know what I mean?
Or kept the best of both worlds. I know there's a lot of people who do it. They're like, well, I enjoyed this thing and I'm going to do this. I will say too that, and I guess this is at a fault and also a good thing as well, but like it's something that I've been working on, but like I care a lot about what people think of me, or I used to anyways. And so having someone think that like, oh, Zach's a player, or Zach like is disrespectful, or he's like he mistreats women, or he's not a good guy, it would kill him.
Would kill me.
It would kill him. Yeah.
Okay.
And
that
alone,
has to
I
do
think
with
would like stop me from doing anything. Also, and then with the Vine thing, right? Too, like we're having people come up to us and are like, "Oh, you're the Vine guy." Like random people on my campus that are being like, "I know you from like." So like, I felt like I couldn't do anything without it being like, I'm thinking I'm getting recorded or something. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like I had to kind of be. Hilarious. I had to be just on my A game. You know?
So you really cared about like your reputation in the sense of like you want to appear that you have the good morals that you do. Because I almost think of it as the opposite of like the world's reputation of you would be like you're lame. Like why would it, you can go hook up with any girl that you want. Right. Why would you not do that? Like that's weird. Like
I guess that just is about my priority. Like I don't. That's not cool
care
to
about
me.
That.
Yeah. And that I don't know what to say about that. Shout out to Mama P. Paula. His mom was just a champ at raising him.
So that like just briefly, like what was your family dynamic growing up? Like your mom.
My mom and my dad got divorced when I was in 7th grade.
Okay.
And I have a little brother. He's got Down syndrome. And my mom raised me from, I guess, 13?
Yeah.
Until I left for college.
Mm-hmm.
But
Dad wasn't really in the picture.
In the picture after he left, and.
Okay.
So I just have to say, with that knowledge, like knowing the man that he like innately, like not having that example, post divorce, but also like pre-divorce, probably not having the best example of man, husband.
He didn't have what you have.
No. No. And that has been very admirable and has changed my perspective just in, you don't have to be what you've seen. And that I think is unfortunately a lie, an excuse that I think a lot of us are fed is like, well, that's what you saw. And it's kind of, you limit people. And it's like, no, you can be different and better than the things that you saw and the way that you saw them being done. Because you didn't have that example. But
of marriage.
No.
Yeah. Neither did I. I've definitely been open about that. Like I had no example at all.
Yeah.
And the example that I did have was like a really, really bad one.
Right.
So I don't blame that for my like actions or the mistakes that I've made, but it definitely plays a role.
Absolutely.
Like, because then you're like, you get into adulthood and you're like, wait a minute, what is marriage again? Like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to be doing here? And it definitely shapes your thoughts and your behaviors
Absolutely.
without you knowing it.
Yeah.
And then you might be 45 by the time you realize like why you are the way you are.
Right.
And you're
That's
like
so true.
what you thought was true, that's not true.
Absolutely.
But that's a huge blessing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
I think
y'all
as
are
you-
blessed.
It was definitely a covering.
I think as you have
Yeah.
relationships, though, those things rear their heads. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I think being just like aware of, just self-aware of the things that, you know, if you have been dating one or two people, like, what are the two things, like, what are they saying about you as a partner, you know, and maybe thinking about like some things that you might not want to say is true about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and just trying to figure out like what the root is of what those things are, you know,
Yeah.
and how you can kind of be just a better partner.
Yeah. I'm sure it helps too to have like a wife, like to have had a partner that like you can maybe lean on some of those things. Like I pray for that, to have a husband that like he comes from like the good solid family. Like
Right.
somebody's got to have an example here. Like, somebody's got to know what we're doing.
Someone. Yeah.
And I don't know y'all's
do.
relationship, but I imagine that maybe like let's say even if you need advice or something, at least you know that you can lean on Carly's parents. You haven't said that, but like
No,
your
no,
parents are incredible.
Oh, my parents are the best. They're so solid and supportive and love hard, and I think that has been an awesome addition, and for him having, especially my dad, and the
Yeah.
relationship that they developed. So, you know, and I'll join you and along with those prayers for you and your future spouse, but like his parents being able to be people that you can like just have that relationship with and pick their brain and be like, hey, what, you know, and have them be able to pour into you. And maybe the way that just because of the dynamic of your parents and, you know, whatever happened through that divorce was like, maybe they can't, you know, pitch in on the same way, you know, or give the same thoughts or experience. And so that is, I think, definitely been a huge part of just a huge blessing is the relationship.
Yeah, your dad's great, and it's been really amazing for me just to kind of just sit back and watch. You know, not a lot of conversations happen to where it's like, this is how you're supposed to treat your kids and your wife. You know, but
It's by
just
example.
being able to, it's by example.
It's good.
That's what I feel like I've had these like families or couples in my life that's exactly what it is. It's this like unconscious, like just watching and then like later processing and being like, oh, that's how they eat dinner, and like
Right.
oh, that's how they talk to each other,
Right.
like, oh wow, like, and it's so like the simplest thing sometimes, but just having an example to watch is huge. That's why I asked that question about your parents. I don't mean to like dig into your family,
Oh my gosh,
but like
absolutely,
it's especially such like a prevalent problem, I think. Especially people who are still single in our age group and older that desire to be married. Typically you're going to have something like that in your past, like divorce or
1,000%.
abuse or like something went wrong, most likely.
for sure.
But on that note, I kind of want to pick Zach's brain a little bit. There's something that I heard, I don't know if it was on Instagram or somewhere recently, probably Instagram, that it was kind of like going around that a man knows whether or not he wants to marry the girl he's with within the first like 6 weeks. Like he knows whether or not she's wife material right away. So if it's like he's going to know in the back of his head somewhere that whether he's stringing her along and she's just like a placeholder or he's pursuing her as a wife. So what do you think about that? And how soon into getting to know a woman do you think a man knows whether or not he wants to marry her?
That's a good question. I definitely think age matters, right? Like in our situation, I didn't know she was my wife at 18. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you knew I wasn't a placeholder. Like that.
Right,
I think
okay,
that's
I get what you're
it's
saying.
the intention behind the pursuit. Like, am I doing this just to like?
I get what you're saying. I definitely think there is, I don't like you get kind of put into a category for sure. I definitely do think that that is a thing.
Okay.
Timing, I feel like it just is depending on the man.
As far as like being like, I'm gonna propose.
right, like how long
Yeah,
it takes to
that'll
kind
vary,
of go to the next level for him or whatever. But I think it varies per guy or guy. What?
What?
Yeah,
I
per
think it
each- per
varies,
each
right?
guy, yeah.
But like it just goes back to the whole checklist thing that I was saying. Like
Uh-huh.
what he's wanting, you know, certain things are, you know, obviously is she pretty is like, am I just going to hook up with this girl or is this my like that's going to be on all of the lists, right?
Okay.
Like he's going to want a pretty person that he's being around,
Attracted.
right?
Sure,
like
yeah.
and so there's all of these different traits or things that are on these the list, and I think that is definitely a thing. I can't really say there is a time, but I do think that like when you meet someone, they go into a specific category, and it could be like, okay, this is somebody that I could see myself being with for a long period of time. And then as you're spending time with that person and you find something out about how their personality is or whatever the icks are that you don't like or whatever it is, you could get maybe moved down to
Move
like
to another category.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah.
Have y'all seen the video that was like, there's X amount of categories that you're put in?
No.
I'm sure it's not on y'all's feed. It was on mine for a while. It was like this girl saying that she talked to this guy and he said there were like, I want to say there was like 5 categories. And
What
so
are these
immediately any
categories?
single girl, any girl is like 5. I got
What are
that there
the-
was 2, like wife or not wife.
Yeah.
But there was like the lowest category was like you're just someone to hook up with, like not someone that's like you respect.
Uh-huh.
And then there's like and I don't know the terms she was using for each category, but then the next category was like the okay girl, like the settling girl, that you, like the placeholder.
Interesting.
And then the next,
Okay.
maybe there was 4. I don't know. There was another category above that was like the wife. Like this is the one that you see as a wife. You're pursuing her as like you respect her, all of that. And then there was another category
Above that?
Yes, the highest category was the girl that's out of his league, and that some guys will either just like not even acknowledge that girl if they
won't even try.
they're like, she's way out of my league, or they will pursue her just for an ego boost, just to like see if they can get her to
Interesting.
like him or whatever. But they still know that she's like too good for him.
Yeah.
So there's no real intention there either. There was only one category where there was like genuine intention.
That's so fascinating.
I know.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was like,
What do you,
I don't know if
how
this
does
is
that
true,
sound? Like as a guy,
Yeah.
do you like? Can you see
mean-
that, or do you?
I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
That's
For
I feel
sure.
like in friends that we've had, that we've seen go through relationships, like when they're dating someone, you can like like, oh, they're just like,
Yeah.
they're just hooking out. Like he's not being serious about it. There is a different pursuit when it is like, I really want to value this relationship. I really want
Right,
to like
yeah.
this to become something.
Yeah. How does a woman know if her boyfriend sees her as a potential wife or not? So like if she's trying to like detect what category am I in?
Ooh, what are the
like,
signs?
What are the signs?
Man, it's so tough because I feel like that this is a part of a relationship is I think trust is the biggest component of it all. And you have to be able to trust the other person and what they're telling you. So to me, it would be what he's saying to you and how he's treating you. And if you're having to guess, then I would say that's probably red flag number 1
Yeah.
in terms of like if he's not telling you
Communicating,
what communicating
the
it to
purpose
you,
of the,
or if he's
yeah.
I mean, you know,
If you feel confused, probably. 'Cause
yeah.
If he's
Like,
not
who am I to
communicating
him?
clearly,
What yeah.
If I feel like I like really confused, mixed signals.
Right,
Oh.
but things happen, right? And so there might be something that's taken out of context or whatever, and you bring it up to him, and I would say once you bring it up to him and he comes back with something that is still confusing for you, then I think that kind of shows
Yeah.
you. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you give somebody the opportunity to tell you, hey, this is what I meant by this, or this is, you know,
That's
meant by
fair.
my actions or whatever. Oh, okay, I can maybe see your point of view, right? Because we do things all the time that,
Yeah.
you know, like you do things that I wouldn't do, right? Or I do things that you wouldn't
Yeah.
do or say or whatever. So like, yeah, I think that's what I would say to that.
Did y'all ever have like I know you said you had times of doubt in the sense of like, should we break up? But did y'all ever individually have doubts about the other person? Maybe I shouldn't ask that question. But
No, 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 that's fine. We're
like
open book.
for example, just on the note of like the mixed signals and feeling confused, like was there ever times where he was making you feel like, I don't know what this is or what he thinks?
I don't think I ever felt I don't know what this is. I don't know. I don't think I ever felt that. I question timing sometimes. I also, you know, I mean, we 18 to now 30. Like, there's been we've watched each other grow up, and there's been covering over that for sure. Because it wasn't like we got this down. We are perfect. We are like such the ideal couple. Like, there was so much love. There was a lot of trust. There was a lot of respect. But there was also like young, like 18, 19, 20. Like, we were, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There were definitely things. I would say
there was so much growth.
Off the top of my mind, I'll start with myself, like things that I know for a fact that I needed to work on and I'm definitely better at now is communication. I was the guy that, and especially being in long distance, and it's probably even worse to do this in a long distance relationship, but I was the guy, if something we weren't, you know, on the same page, like I would just stop responding or like not say anything.
And it wasn't
so
like long periods of time, but it was like, and that was what I mean
like
by
how
when we had to
long?
really like, I mean, the next morning or something. It was, if we had gotten into an argument, and that was.
It was just kind of be like, okay,
distance.
well, I'm kind of done talking about this, so. And
And
then I would go to bed or something like
And
that.
I'm in California, so I can't, you know, if you're with somebody, you go and you beat on the door and you're like, no,
Yes.
open the door. You're talking to me right now. You can kind of force it, potentially, maybe making it worse.
Yeah. You have the choice.
But I can also make sure that you don't avoid me, like to a certain extent. If he's not answering the phone, I can't do anything.
Yeah,
I can't do anything.
There was definitely some growing up in that phase for me, and there was a ton, but I'm sure that was a red flag for her, right? No one wants that from a partner where they're like, okay, are you just gonna dip out on me when things get hard?
Yeah,
right?
and there were those conversations for sure where it was like,
so
this is a problem, or
like this can't happen, right? And so, and you just work on it. I don't really know. I would say for your thing that you've gotten so much better.
I was gonna say it, but you can go ahead and say it for me.
Well, go ahead then.
What were you gonna say?
I don't want to. You're gonna say two.
Wait, let's see if we can say it at the same time.
Okay.
Or are you gonna just the
I'm
word?
scared.
I know this is. Let's see if we can. We say two different things. I'm like, well, I didn't know that was an issue.
I'll give you a moment.
Let's try. 1, 2, 3. Negativity. Wow. That's good.
That's better than the little game where y'all said the different words every time.
Oh yeah, I've seen
On your whatever TikTok video that was.
Yeah. And I will say I'm a very positive person, but I also have in the past had this habit where I, especially with someone I'm comfortable with, will just say whatever's on, like I don't really have a filter. And so when I was with him, I would be like, just almost kind of a complainer spirit. Like I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's like I don't like this or I don't like that. I'm thinking, I'm just saying it and then moving on because I'm like, well, all this stuff is great. For him, he didn't grow up around those thoughts freely flying. It was less communication, whereas my family is very much like
more open.
We talk about everything, we say everything. So I'm saying this, I'm not saying it's good, which is why there's been growth in there, in that aspect. But where I just, you know, he's like, why are you being so negative? Why are you complaining about these things? I'm like, oh, I feel fine. Like, I'm not trying to be any type of way, but he was hearing it and it was like impacting the vibe or the mood in a negative way. And so that was something that he's a very positive person. Like if the vibes are good, like we don't have to it doesn't have to get unless it's like something really necessary that needs to be brought
you don't
to
have
attention.
To point out every little thing.
And
or
that is
just like when you point it out, we can just like bring it up in a good manner, you know, and it can still, the vibes can still be good, even though we're talking about something that you feel like I need to work on or whatever.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be like a bad thing that we're talking about it bad. And and so I think to bring it back to like the actual question, there were definitely things that like we weren't perfect for each other. Like, you know, we're not the same person. So we definitely, you know, go about things differently and had to figure out and are still figuring out, you know, the best ways to just essentially put your partner first, you know, and think about them as you're going
While
about
not
life.
changing who you are, but growing into a better person. I think those are two different things.
Yeah, for sure.
Changing and like doing something solely to just morph into what that person wants you to be is
Yeah.
different than the person you trust pointing out like, hey, I don't think this is the best way. Like, I think there's a healthier, better
Right.
way.
Right.
And
right.
helping you grow as a person is different than
Right.
being like, I'm just gonna like be what they want me to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So whether we were with each other or not, I feel like those are good things that we needed to learn individually anyways, right? To be with whoever
yeah.
we're going to be with. So
Yeah.
it was things like that
That like brought
and-
on some doubts, but never to the point where it was like, I really need to like sit down and potentially do that, like execute this.
Yeah. Wow. I think that that's something that a lot of, just like in the dating culture now, people are really quick to like the red flag thing. Like I have, like, I think whenever that trend started with like pointing out red flags,
Yeah.
at first I was like, wow, this is so helpful. Like, oh my gosh, yes, that's a red flag. And now I'm like, is this good? Because like that would definitely be considered a red flag, like the not responding.
Yeah.
But, or like someone who's complaining all the time.
Yeah.
So like in today's culture, they would just be like, peace out. Like, I don't want that energy around me.
Yeah.
Like, I want someone who's secure. I need a man who's going to respond as soon as I message him. Like, and there's just this really easy, like, quick to write people off. And I'm sure I'm guilty of it at times too.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why, but we certainly live in a culture that like everything's instant gratification. You can get what you want as soon as you click
Yeah.
buy now on
Shout out to
Amazon
Amazon.
Prime.
For
I
sure.
mean, like, you know, you can watch pretty much any movie that exists at a click of
Yeah.
a button. You know, there's no more like, let's see if it's there at Blockbuster. Like,
No,
you don't have
there's
to
no-
wait
oh
for
my gosh,
anything.
those were great days, though.
Yeah.
I remember Friday nights going to
heck
Blockbuster.
yeah. For sure. The one down the road on Mason, I was like always hitting it up every Friday.
That
Yes.
was the spot.
Yes. Go to Walgreens on the way back, get candy.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. Stop in a Kroger, get some cookies to bake.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but that just like doesn't exist anymore. And because I think human nature, like we don't want to like look at ourselves. Like we don't want to
Right.
have to work on ourselves. So it's a lot easier to just be like red flag, next. Rather than being like, maybe I need to figure out how to communicate how this red flag makes me feel.
Yeah.
And then, why does it make me feel that way?
Right.
Like if you taking a day to respond bothers me, let's think about that. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so that's a huge struggle
Yeah.
in the dating culture now is
For
like
sure.
not being so quick to write people off and having patience and also knowing when is it a red flag.
When do you need to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would y'all's advice be to the single people like on that subject?
Yeah.
Because I feel like y'all have done it really well.
Well, I'll say, I don't think no one, but I don't think just because, you know, say she didn't like that about me, so she's going to go and find somebody else. He's going to have something else that she's not going to just
We all got
100%
stuff.
pair up with. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I think there goes a little bit into like, a little bit of like a commitment to like, hey, okay, just giving it a chance. I think, you know, we're all going to have something that, because we're all different people, we're going to go about things differently. And I think giving each person, you know, the time to
And maybe benefit of the doubt too.
benefit of the doubt in the moment and a little bit of time to see how they're going to go about it, right? I bring this problem up to you. How is he going about, you know, trying to make it right?
Does he try
you know
to
what I mean?
Get
Is he,
better, actually.
is he
Right.
taking
from
it
that.
seriously, you know, or is it just, I don't know, is he just not?
He didn't.
he
He
not,
didn't. He
you
didn't
know?
take the feedback. He didn't take
right.
the feedback.
Like
he didn't.
might like flip it back on you or
Right.
just, gaslighting
gaslight you.
or
Yeah.
being like, I don't know what you're talking about or
Right.
not wanting to work on it or
Yeah. I also think that does if that red flag that comes up, if it fully outweighs the other like positive things you feel about that person, maybe that is like, oh, I didn't like him as much as I thought. Like I don't feel like this is my person as much as I thought.
Yeah.
Versus like it would have been really hard. Like it would have taken a lot based on what I was feeling about our connection, about him, and all the good things, all the great things, for me to be like, oh, I'm out. You know, at the
Yeah.
first or second red flag. But I did see him, and I think he saw me actively trying to be better. So it wasn't like we had one conversation and then it was perfect.
Right.
It was, but you saw that person was like, oh shoot, yeah, I did. Okay, you're right, I did the thing. Like, you know, trying to be better.
Yeah.
So.
And we gave you, I think those were like kind of our biggest like things that I think that's why it was so easy for me to kind of come up with it, because those were for us individually
Reoccurring themes that you know were things that we were really trying to be better at. So it wasn't like one conversation.
Yeah, so
it was
there was a lot of grace with
grace
her,
is a good word.
you know, with me, you know, with the communication thing. In the same way,
there was there's something that I heard from a friend who's married, and I think it came from their like marriage therapist, and they said like when you're having an argument or like you know, something's bothering you, that you should always assume the best first. So like, you know, let's just use the not responding example. If he's like not responding, especially as women, like you can jump off a cliff real quick.
And I have been there.
So I try to like think about that and balance that, and I'm like, okay, I want to assume the best. Like let me not completely jump off Mount Everest right away. But also that's advice for married couples.
For sure.
So then it's like kind of confusing because you're like, well, also when you're dating, like I'm not going to treat you like my husband.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to treat you like someone who's pursuing me.
Right.
If that's what's going on. And so I want to assume the best initially to like not jump off that cliff, but at the same time, I don't want to be giving him excuses as I'm getting to know this person. Because then you can like convince yourself that there's somebody that they're not.
Correct. I think that it's a constant checking in with, I mean, you have to trust yourself. And I do think that like there's a recalibration after you've had that moment where like, oh, I thought this person was the one and then they weren't. Like you do have to kind of have, I think, like recalibrate your, you know, compass and your, you know, gut feelings and your knowing, and like go back to just stripping everything else away and trusting yourself. But that it reveals over. I think that those things reveal themselves over time. For me, there was a reassurance that when I did have those moments where I was like jumping to conclusions or, you know, jumping off the deep end and assuming the worst, where there was a reassurance on his end after, you know, throughout those, you know, maybe those couple of times that happened where it's like, okay, I don't have to do, like, I think it depends on how your partner's reacting. I think you will know. It doesn't have to happen a million times in order for you to know, okay, I don't need to jump. I don't need to assume that. I don't need to. But if that's not being affirmed or reassured to you, then like maybe you do need to and be like, okay, I can't keep jumping off the cliff. You keep making me question. Right. So I think it goes to your partner reassuring you.
Yeah, reassurance is huge.
Huge.
I think especially so for women.
My mind will go.
Yeah, go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm like, I know what's happening. I know.
And he's like, sometimes when you say it out loud and you're like, this is what I was thinking, like, and you just like kind of spew, then you're like, oh my God. Like,
oh my gosh, what? Yeah.
Like it's embarrassing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe that's the other trick is like, I don't know, call a friend and like say it out loud.
For sure.
Because I've definitely done that with
maybe like
friends
record yourself.
And listen to it back.
You definitely have to, I would say you definitely have to have friends that you can kind of tell things to see if it's something that you should bring up or not.
Yeah.
Does this sound wild?
I've said that one too many times.
Oh, yeah.
But how many wild things have been said between me and you? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the person that you're going to be with for the rest of your life. Like, y'all are going to talk about some wild things, right? Like, things are going to be said that you don't like, or things are going to be said that you don't agree with. Like, you know, so, I mean, at the end of the day, I think all of these things they're tests for your relationship, right? And so when you communicate them, like it's either telling you yes or no to whatever it is, you know?
That's true.
And
Carley, what has been the hardest part about your relationship with Zach, and what has been the best part?
I mean, honestly, I think the hardest part was our long distance phase for sure. That was very challenging, and obviously I know not a lot of people can like relate to that specifically. I think the other thing that was hard was through just with what I do, I had been told like early on, don't post about him. Like, you need to appear single. You need to look like this. You need to, there was kind of
Oh,
not
really?
like, and I was like, no, I never
Wow.
subscribed to that. So that was an interesting thing to navigate. That wasn't great. That wasn't necessarily something between him and I.
Right.
I think getting over the communication thing was also a big, and it wasn't like you were, every day be like, I'm not going to talk. But it was like,
Yeah.
in the arguments or things that would come up, it was like, I process quickly. I process out loud. I like to talk through things.
Yes.
He's a internal processor and then wants to talk about it when he's ready. I'm like ready and off the rip,
Yeah. Same.
So that was something we had to,
Yeah,
that was a
so-
difficult thing to navigate,
Yeah,
I
that's-
think.
That's funny.
But the best part is definitely just like our like laughter, our like humor together. We just have, it's literally it is truly, I mean, this is funny, but like to this day, like there's random nights where we're getting into bed. We're like 2 years into marriage. We've been together for 11 years. We're like, we're having a sleepover. Like it is really like, and that is genuinely not because we're special, but because we genuinely prioritize like, I picked this person. Like I picked this person and said yes to like this person being my person forever. You think I'm
Yeah.
gonna like not put in the work to make sure that it feels amazing all the time? Like, and it's not going to all the time, but I think like it blows my mind when there is this like almost complacency that sets in. And I think you have to be aware, and you have to make sure that you have to be aware, because it can creep in. It's not like we haven't had moments where like, oh yeah, we're kind of getting complacent, but it's like as soon as that feels like that, we're like, okay, what do we need to do? Because this
That's
should be
good.
so fun.
Yeah.
We chose to be together. No one made us.
Yeah.
Right.
We chose it, and I want to work every day to make sure that like we're having just as much fun and enjoying each other just as much like when we're 80 years old as we did when we were 18.
Yeah.
Because why else would you choose? Like you chose
Right.
you chose this.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is your person.
Yes.
Is it like it? It's not people are like marriage is ball and chain and shackles. It's like,
Dude,
you're
I hear
not
that.
having fun with your person.
I
That's
hear
crazy.
that all the time.
That's
and
crazy.
Like, and like not long after they get married. Like people,
It
anybody
is-
that's our age range should not be saying that. 'Cause
Oh
you
my
got
gosh.
married within.
Yeah.
Well, nobody should say that, but like
Right.
definitely not if you got married within the last
That
5
is
years. That's
crazy to me, because it's like, and I think it just goes to and there is life, kids, finances, schedules, jobs, stress, all of that. But like, I imagine us I want to keep like a protective bubble around our marriage and our relationship. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
anything to, it's like stress, finances, well, the things that come. I just pray all the time over that, because I want it to be fun. Like I am like, when we're healthy, which is honestly such a large majority of the time,
Right.
that is, it's the best,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty light.
So that I would say is the best. It
Pretty,
is.
it's pretty
Pretty
chill.
light.
It's pretty
What does that
light.
mean? Is that a
Like,
new word?
just things aren't like so serious, you know?
Like, it
Things
doesn't
are
have to be
always
like,
gonna be
life
tri-
is hard and we have to fight and you need to be stressed about this. And
Like it doesn't always have
It's-
to be this like deep thing. Like
And there's
you know?
plenty of things that we could be stressed about. You know
For
what I mean?
sure.
Like, but
yeah,
it's
of
like,
course.
so that would say it's just the companionship and just the like,
Yeah.
like besties. I don't know.
Well,
yeah, it's good.
Zach, why did you choose Carley?
I chose Carly because she was the person for me. She checked off all of those things we were gonna.
What he means to say is just because what he
You
means
and
to
the
say
checklist.
is
I feel like your guys are so logical. Like
I
it's
cannot relate.
like
I
what
cannot
the list for
relate.
me changes every day.
I'm like, yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the other thing. He's a
No,
very like
no way.
logistical. He loves a to-do list. He loves it, and I am just like, how do I feel in this?
Yes,
moment? I'm just
yeah.
like, I don't know.
yeah, the to-do list
opposites attract.
might just change depending on what I feel I need to do, not what I
Right.
actually need to do.
What he meant
Yeah,
to say
but
was, I'm
these
just
things are
so
not to-do
wildly
lists.
funny.
These
I'm just
things
so
are-
funny.
These things are not to-do lists. These things are your vision on what you want your life to look like. They're
Yeah,
big.
yeah.
They're big things, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not gonna be. It didn't check off every single thing, right? Like we both had to things that we could work on, and we still have to work on things. But like, you're not gonna find a perfect person.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not
Yeah.
gonna find yourself, and that's what everybody's looking for. Is like,
Yeah.
how can I find
like,
the person
for the
that
people
is
in
just
the back,
like me?
Rewind, watch that
Right,
again.
yeah.
It's just not gonna happen, and so
But I think an imperfect person who is willing to try to be better every day.
yeah.
That's what you should be looking for.
Yeah,
Not
but-
someone who's okay with like, I'm imperfect, I'm a piece of crap, and I'm
Yeah.
And that's just
proud.
is
You
what
know,
it
it's
is,
like,
yeah.
ooh, okay, how can I be better? Ooh, and then like when you unlock that, I think that that is the key to like true freedom and enjoyment in life. Is like it's not a it's not a burden. It's actually like a blessing to be able to recognize things and to become better. It's not like a chore, you
Right.
know. I
Yeah,
think
it's
sitting in that
fun.
it's fun
Yeah,
because
it
then
is
you're like,
fun.
oh, because then it's not just fun for you. It's like, oh, I grew in those things and I became a better person. Now my relationship is like so much better.
Yeah.
Because I'm, doing the things that keep that environment healthy and good and light and fun and that is like the key to, I think, real enjoyment.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I want to go back to what you were saying about like, as an artist, you were like
Yeah.
pressured to
Yeah.
do certain things or look a certain way.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about Hollywood's rejection of marriage as a whole? Obviously, there are Hollywood stars who are married, at least for certain amounts of time.
Yeah.
But as a whole, that's really not the norm out here.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I would say I don't think Hollywood rejects marriage. I don't think they value it. I don't think they respect it. And so I think that it is like that is you see so much not valued in the marital space. And so I feel like it's not, oh, you got married, like ew, but it's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not a
It's not like a celebrated, like, cool thing.
it's not a commitment honored how it should be. I don't think. I think it's like, oh, how do I feel? Yeah, I feel okay. We can still be married. We can still do this. Oh, I think that is, I don't subscribe to so much of what the industry says you should do or shouldn't do or what's cool or what's not cool. And I think that that's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know about y'all, but marriage is awesome. Like it's great.
Why do you think it's something that should be valued?
Because God tells us to, I'm
straight up.
I didn't decide it, but it's a holy commitment before your friends and family and God, and it's a vow. And so it's like, I'm not just out here vowing left and right to things, you know what I mean? Like this is a commitment, and I think that I value it and respect it in the way that God has like told us to, which is you're and handle it well. It's not, I think that don't just vow to vow, like do the things that we're talking about, which is like try to be better, try to make it healthy. Don't just be like, you're stuck with me. You did a vow, and then have it be super toxic and abusive and unhealthy. Like that's a whole different conversation.
For sure.
Yeah.
How do you think value has been brought to your life being married? Because especially as an artist, you could be pursuing your career independently.
Yeah.
Just like independent woman, be single on your music, like all those things. Like just like everybody else. I hate to say that, but that's typically what you see with female artists.
It's so it's so empty. When you do that pursuit, I think like that, and I think if I think that there are people called to singleness. I know that it's not like necessarily everyone is called to marriage, but I think it depends on what you're prioritizing. And I think that when you prioritize the thing, the dream, the money, there is so much emptiness, and you're placing your identity in that. And this goes so far beyond marriage. This is just a general societal problem that is so obvious, is that goalpost always keeps moving. I was in a session recently where it was like, yeah, I got nominated for the Grammy, but now I need to win a Grammy. Okay, well, when you win a Grammy, you're going to win 2 Grammys, then you're going to win 5 Grammys, then it's going to be like, I got to, that always moves. And I think you find people who have the most fame. They've achieved all their dreams. They have the most money, and they are miserable. They're riddled with anxiety, depression, stress, and you see it manifest in ways of, divorce and drug addiction and alcohol. Like there's so many things in the ways that, and I think it rears its head. Yeah. But you're like, well, they're successful. They have, like, I would be so happy if I had that. No, you wouldn't.
Right.
You're placing your identity in the wrong things. And so I think that for me, outside of my faith, like I don't value anything over my marriage. And there were so many times in our journey where I was like, I had those thoughts. I was like, should I be Should I not be going to Lubbock this weekend?
Yeah.
What if I'm going to miss something? And so it was the faith of like, no, what God has for me is going to, like, what's meant for me is going to be. I'm not going to miss anything. I am so glad that I prioritize this relationship, because then it's like, oh, it's just your boyfriend, right? Now it's like, this is my life partner.
Yeah.
This is my husband. I'm so glad that I didn't get so consumed in the chase of this thing that I disrupted this, or I made this unhealthy, because this is like a huge part of my life foundation now. So I have empathy, but I also feel sad for people who feel like nothing else matters besides, because I do believe that we're called to people. Like the point of having the gifts, the talents, the dreams, the desires is to like positively impact people. And so if I'm valuing the check mark of like success, like, oh, I got this, I have this many followers, and I have this, and now I'm super successful, and I'm touring the world, and it's like, I do believe that if that is where I'm placing my identity, there is going to be that like emptiness.
Yeah.
And
that can also be taken away from you at any moment.
absolutely,
The
that's what I'm saying. It's like
fame, the money. I mean, you can get canceled tomorrow.
in
you
today's
can lose your
culture, for sure.
Yes, I mean, your music could go out of style.
It could be,
you know, anything could. You could get a vocal injury. I don't know. Anything could happen.
Absolutely.
But like, this cannot be taken away from you unless God takes it from you.
Right. And I think about, I've seen people talk about this, you know, who were elderly, or, you know, reflecting back on their life, and they're like, I hear more people regret putting everything into work or dreams or the chase, and not spending enough family time, not valuing their marriage, being like, well, you're going to be here, so I'm just going to do it. Like, at the end of the day, on my deathbed, am I going to be thinking, shoot, I really wish I would have hit 1 million followers on TikTok, or I really wish I would have gotten that grant. Like, I don't know if I don't think I'm going to be thinking that.
No.
I think I'm going to be like, hold my hand and pray over me. Or like, I'm like, it's going to be like, what are the things that actually matter? And I'm not saying the dreams and the careers and like all of that is purposeful and important. But I think if you place your identity in it, that's where it gets dangerous.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so good. I can't say anything. That was really, really good.
It is. It's really good. I'm kind of like, all right, well, that was the show. But I'm on that topic of like just quality and placing identity. What do you think? Because most of our audience is women, not all, but about 70%. What do you think is the most important quality that a woman should possess to be a good wife?
Respect. But there's 3 parts to it.
Okay. Oh, I'm ready.
Okay. So I think respect, there's so many things that can contribute to a really happy, healthy marriage and you being a great wife.
Yeah.
Respect, though, to me trumps it all, because I think first you need to respect yourself enough to pick a stand-up man, the type of man that you deserve. I think that's the first thing of respect. Once you've chosen that man and you've had enough respect for yourself to choose the man where you're like, that's the man I deserve. The second part to that is respecting him. Once you've made that choice and you're like, all right, I respected myself enough to choose this quality man, I'm going to respect him enough to lead us and to be the leader in the relationship, and to be the partner that you are expecting him to be. Okay. And so I think respect plays a huge part in men specifically, and how they're wired and what they need.
Yeah.
And the third part is respecting your marriage or relationship. And so that goes back into respecting him, because it's like, are you out in public with your girlfriend and be like, oh yeah, he like talking crap about, like, those things are damaging. And I think that especially for men and women, I'd be hurt, I'd be upset, but I think it really like knocks them when there is, whether it's your actions, stepping out on them, or talking bad about them, or when I say embarrassing, I mean like, disclosing something to your friends, like you get caught up in girl chat and you're like, he did this, and I think, imagine that protective bubble around your relationship. Same goes with him. Like, I would be hurt if he was like, oh yeah, the old ball and chain wants to do dinner tonight. It's like that. I think just pokes tiny holes in your relationship that like slowly lets out little air. So I think that like respect is a foundational thing first with yourself. Respect yourself enough. Pick choose wisely.
Right.
Get what you deserve.
Right.
That's first. But if you did do that, then you got to respect him and trust him in that
What
space.
does that look like? Like, what do you think men need? Or maybe you want to answer that too, but like, what does respecting your man look like?
Yeah.
And not look like?
Well, I think so from my perspective, a lot of it does go back to faith and just kind of what I am entrusting him to do, and it's trusting him to lead us. And so it's like, if I'm respecting him by trusting that he is going to God and asking him about things. And if he comes to me and says, I really feel like we should do this, and it's not what I think we should do, I know a lot of people like cringe at this word, but it's submitting to that, like, all right, and we can toss that word and just say, like, it's being like, okay, I'm gonna trust and respect that, like, you know what's best. I also think that you're going to God and that you're hearing from God. I think it would be hard for me to do that if I didn't know, if he was just like deciding on his own, like, I just feel like we should, no, I need to make sure that you're like praying about it.
Okay.
That is how I can even begin to trust him, is like, so I'm like, if people don't have that, I'm like, wait, how do you know that they're making like decisions? Because I mean, the only way that I trust him, and I think you would make good decisions, but like, is that he's checking in and being like, all right, God, I'm going to pray about this for our lives, for our families, for our relationship. But I think it's also like, we're big on we don't do the play like tearing each other down. We have witty banter, but this is specifically respecting Zachary. It's like, he does not enjoy or think the funny thing is like, you know, I don't know, talking crap to each other and like, you know, that,
or like sarcasm, like it just doesn't play well with me.
He does not like that.
Explain that, because I just had a conversation about that this morning with a good friend of mine, and I was talking about sarcasm, and I was just like reminded of a sermon I had heard a long time ago, and I was a pastor who had newly gotten married, and he was talking about sarcasm in just any relationship in general, but how it's like, it can be damaging,
I think it
or
can
disrespectful.
be.
And then the friend I was talking to, she's like, oh yeah, we squashed that like early on. And I'm like, well, nobody told me. And I'm so sarcastic. That's my sense of humor.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I got to figure out.
The Lord's going to bless you with someone who like loves
take it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there are people who I don't think it's a general thing. I think if you enjoy that and that's your humor, like, God is going to have someone who's like, oh, I got something for her. They're going to be so funny and sarcastic. For him specifically, in our relationship and dynamic, it doesn't land well with him. So it's knowing your person. I'm just
sensitive, to be honest. Like, I want you to tell me exactly how you feel. I don't want you to like play this game of being like, you know, you're showing your love by like making a joke and trying to make me feel bad about something. Like, I just, because I'm gonna take what you're saying, you know what I mean, to heart.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't land well with me. I think too, people start to kind of like hide their insecurities, or they hide like
how they really feel through saying the sarcastic joke, and then you're like,
so then things kind of get mushed like in with like, okay, is this her joking sarcastically, or is this something that she's truly feeling, but she's like trying to laugh it off and trying to make it seem like it's not really a serious thing.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's just kind of, the intention is not very obvious, and you know, as much as I'm not very direct in my, you know, I'm getting better with being better with my communication, being direct. I just think it's not the best way to communicate.
Yeah, but y'all do joke around a ton.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
but we're like silly.
We're like silly. Yeah.
It's not like I don't know. I'm trying to think of a sarcastic. Now I'm like, I don't know a sarcastic.
But you're kind of sensitive too. Like, we'll get on times where we're just kind of going back at each other, but it'll last like 2 or 4 comments, like going back and forth, and then it's like, all right, like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like literally saying that to each other, like, okay, like I've gotten, we're good for a week or whatever. You know, like, let's love each other now. You know, like, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't play well for us. And I agree with Carley that I don't think that goes for everyone. Because I know guys who are like, yeah, man, I need a girl who can like take some of my stuff. And honestly, I know a lot of guys, especially guys who play sports, who that is just how they are.
Yeah.
It's just very rough, and like they just say whatever, and you just need to kind of take it. And it doesn't land well with me in those friendships
with, like,
either. You know,
guys,
like
yeah.
it just isn't my type of humor.
Yeah.
I don't think it's funny, and yeah, and you're gonna know, like, you know, because I'll get quiet.
I feel like
So-
I can relate in like a different aspect of humor, because like there's people who are like very like, I think it's called like slapstick funny, where if like someone trips and falls, like they will
think
just
it's hilarious.
bust out laughing. And I don't think it's funny at all. Like if I were to trip and fall, especially if I'm like hurt and someone's laughing, like
Right.
I would be my feelings would be deeply hurt.
Yeah.
But that I know that like that's not the norm. That's not everybody.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
some people, then they're not laughing because they're laughing at you. Like they don't
Right.
think you're pathetic. They
Yeah.
just think what happened was funny.
Right.
So yeah, humor I think plays a big role in like
It's got to align. I
the
think.
communication.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The
Sticking it
intention.
across.
It's all about just communicating your intention to the other person. What did you mean by
That-
that
yeah.
when you said that?
Right.
Or
Yes.
when you did that, what like were you trying to make me feel loved, or were you just doing it just to like do something on the to-do list? Like, what was your intention on it? Now I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just had this thought, but the other thing I want to say about respect is speaking your partner's love language. So I think that just goes to show, like, I love you, I respect you enough. I'm gonna like, especially if they're different, you know, be better. Make sure that I'm showing you love in the way that you receive it. Otherwise, I'm gonna be exhausted and you're gonna resent me because you don't feel loved. You know.
Yeah. What are y'all's
Those
love
things
languages?
are so fun to us. Like,
Love
we
language,
Love
we
languages?
do
those
love.
things.
Yeah.
Really?
I am a words of affirmation.
That's your
person.
number one?
Oh, for sure.
It's
Okay.
her 1, 2, and 3.
It is not my 1, 2, and 3.
I love you, baby.
It's not. It's a big one for me.
Yeah.
What are you?
Acts of service and quality time.
Okay. Acts of service.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
And what's funny, but what we've kind of grown in throughout our relationship is, I would probably say those are like our worst to give. Would you say that? Like, it doesn't come very easy or natural to me to tell you or leave a note or
I would say you're very good at like affirming, like, and saying like I love you and saying things, but like I love like a little like random note, you know, or just a random you look really pretty today, you know. And I think that he's been really receptive to hey, I need that more, and stepping up and doing that.
my natural thought is to
do something.
What I've heard is like you give how you'd like to receive it, right? So every time I put on a fit, she's in my ear like, you go for it. Like, you going crazy.
She's
right
like,
now.
yeah,
You know what I
nice,
mean?
but I don't really need it.
She's
and I'm
like photographer.
Right, exactly, and is giving it to me like that. For me, like, if I'm thinking of her like throughout the day, I'll like stop and get something on the way home and like bring it to her, or like I'll order something on Amazon and I'll just leave it in the room.
not
and then
not
she'll
just
come
that.
in.
It goes. If he sees my phone or iPad or computer is low battery, it's like he plugs it in. That water is never empty. It is always all like that is one thing that I've noticed that he does. It's like it's these little.
That's so nice.
It's so. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh!
so
I'll go
it's-
to pick it up and I'm like, did you fill this up? He's like, yeah. I'm like. And then I'm like, oh, I should be thinking about doing that for his. You know, like those are the things that don't come as naturally to me.
right.
But I'm always like, oh my gosh, I love you, and you know, I'm a very words person, but.
Yeah.
So y'all try to like work on changing how you naturally give affection and try to do it the way
Just
that
to
you
make
want.
sure that your efforts it's for you as
Yeah.
well, to where you're not putting in so much effort in doing the water bottle or doing all these different things, and
It's not
being nice
landing.
for her, but it not filling her up and being
Yeah.
like, he's really been loving
It
me
is
this week. You know what I mean? Whereas now, you know, I'm getting better with it, but like, okay, I can write a note and leave it by her bedside. That will literally take 10 seconds. And then I come home and she's beaming. Like, that is, I could do that. You know what I mean? So it's just like leaning into those things, and it might be like a hack. It might not be. I don't know. But like, leave reminders for yourself. I've been starting to do that on my phone, just being like, and it might be kind of looked at as like you're, you know, I don't know.
Like
it's
faking
yeah,
it,
like the
or-
intention is not there, but like at the end of the day, I'm doing it because
You want to
I
communicate this,
Yeah, I want to
yeah.
make sure that she is like feeling this, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying anything that isn't how I
Isn't
feel.
true, yeah.
But it's just almost like it's wiring myself to like to think about like doing.
It's like a
that,
condition.
If
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
I mean, it's like you're learning a new language.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So every couple of weeks I have like I don't know if you.
I didn't know
this.
this.
Every couple of weeks. Well, you know what? It's because it's not written out like on the reminders like do something nice for Carley or whatever. You know, it's like a specific thing that.
Is it a secret?
What do you
Like,
mean?
do you keep like if you're giving yourself a reminder, like
I'm
do
reminding
these things?
myself
What
to
is it?
like, are you like, have you shown her love in?
Oh,
in
it's like
her
a
life
question.
kind of thing.
Okay.
It's like supposed to trigger me to be like, hey,
What do I need
have
to-
you done
like
something?
a check-in, like a self-check-in.
That's
Exactly,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
God,
good.
he's
Wow,
so
I
nice.
should probably do that. Like, oh, that's really good.
Yeah. So I'm sure that y'all have a lot of single friends. Where do you think, from what you see happening, where do you think that single people are getting things wrong?
I have so much empathy for singles in the dating culture right now. I don't understand. It's like the
Neither
app.
do we.
I know. That's why I'm like, the apps and the swiping and I have so much empathy. Do you have thoughts or advice? Because I think
wouldn't say that
we've talked
peop-
about this recently. Because my sister is in that
Yes.
pursuit and in that world of like,
Yeah.
what do you do with this? What
Mhm.
how do you do this? How do you
Right.
navigate this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think. Did you have a thought? I have one, but I
would just say where you. Does it match up to like what you're looking for and where you're looking for it?
Oh, that's
So,
good.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just so tough for me. Like I really don't like to kind of put a blanket statement or say that everyone is kind of doing it this, you know, the one specific way.
Right,
You know, like
yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I would just kind of challenge whoever in that and just making sure that, you know, if you're looking for a godly man, like, are you at the club? Like, cause you're not gonna.
Are you
like,
looking for not? Are you like sure go to the club, but like are you
Right,
trying
right.
to find your person there? Do you is
Right.
that
Are you
Exactly.
going there every weekend expecting to meet a
hoping to
guy?
meet
Exactly.
somebody? Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's good. That's kind of what I was gonna say. Is I see more and more, and maybe this is just here in LA, but more events or opportunities popping up where it's like, you know, screw the apps. We're gonna try to get in person, and so
Yes.
it's like I think putting yourself out there and trying to do things like that, and I think that can be scary for people. Is like
Yeah.
it feels safer maybe on the apps. Is like, well, I can just look at them and then decide, you know,
Yeah.
and they don't even have to really know. But yeah, and I also think, and I this might sound cliche too, but just for me, and obviously we were 18, but I was not like, I'm gonna find somebody. I'm gonna find someone. I want to find someone right now.
Yeah.
I was not thinking about that, and I think this has been true in other areas of my life. Is when I'm not obsessing and thinking about it, and I just kind of like release it, and I'm putting focus and intention and being grateful for the things that I do have and focusing
Yeah.
on that. Like it naturally comes, and I think the timing you have to trust. So I would agree with, you know, make sure you're being intentional about where you're looking
just
and
fishing in the right
aware.
pond,
Oh,
yeah.
ooh, fishing in the right pond is
that
good.
just came to me honestly.
That's good. Let's go.
playing
That's
with
very,
that.
I get, that's Texas. Right
Yeah,
there.
fishing in the right pond. Listen, you
I'm
make
gonna
sure
fish,
you
but-
put that bait in that right pond.
Yeah, I think intention is the biggest thing and I've mentioned it, like I feel there's a huge lack of intention, even with apps. Like to me, you would think like, oh, I'm being intentional going on an app, searching for people. I think it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
For most people on the apps, it's like a pastime. It's like a game.
Yeah.
But the intention of like, okay, this is the type of person I want. This is what I want. Like you're talking about the checklist. Like this is the type of life that I want. And so, no, I'm not going to obsess over it and make that like my daily focus, but it should be a focus.
Yeah,
You should definitely
absolutely.
know. Yeah. You should know going into it, and when you're meeting that person, it's like, oh, okay.
Or just
He's
like
going to
putting
level
yourself
3.
out there, being intentional with like, yeah, I am on this pursuit. It's not, I'm not upset. I'm not like completely consumed with it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to this group. I'm going to go meet some people. I'm going to go to this thing,
Yeah. Well, y'all have given so much advice. That's really good. I'm going to have to watch this like 3 times and take notes. But my last question for you was, what is your biggest piece of advice or wisdom that you would give to single people who want to be married? What is it that you want to leave people with who are single or in a relationship, but they want what you have?
Yeah.
You want to go first or me?
You can go. I got something, but you can go.
I would say treat it like it was the beginning. Like,
so good. Like in marriage.
If you're not happy with your relationship, well, are you treating her like you did at the beginning? Because she liked it at the beginning, right? Like, and you liked her at the beginning. So what's changed and why has it changed, right? There's so many, it just kind of goes back into the whole check, like, not the checklist thing, but checking in on like how it's going and like being true to like how you feel like it's actually going, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not at 100, we have a thing where we say like, and it's kind of a little joke, but we're right before dinner or something where we're just kind of together. We'll be like, we're like 110th out of all of the couples in the world right now.
We do that.
What does that mean?
Wait.
Basically meaning like
We do. So like, if we've had like a really good day, or we're like,
Zach, a little bit
you
more
started
time.
this.
Yeah, of course I did.
All right, I started things too.
like if we had like a really good 3 days and we're just like we're clicking on all cylinders like before dinner or something, I'd be like, thank you Jesus that we're the top 21 couple in like all of the United States.
He's like,
or
baby,
whatever.
we're top 10 today, right?
You know what
but
I mean?
if we've had like post argument or something, he'll be like, man, we're in like
We're
top
ranking
300.
low today.
Yeah.
Top 300.
Yeah.
Keeping it light, right? It's just a little joke to say whatever, but just checking in, us knowing like we're kind of struggling a little bit right now. Like, right? We need to like show each other some love. So but I would say
that's
being true to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the thing that immediately came to mind when you asked the question was don't settle. But it's 2-part. It's don't settle in your pursuit of dating, and like keep those standards, respect yourself. Like the longer journey is worth it if you get at the end what you deserve. And so not settling, I think it can, I can imagine just frustration, exhaustion, being like, this is like some BS. Like I don't, and it being tempting to be like, go just back to that, the TikTok that you saw, like the ring, like category, like, all right, I'll just settle. But that is like your person for that is a partner for you day in and day out.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life. It is not something that should just be like, wow, I'm just gonna. So I think for singles and the pursuit in the dating realm, like even though the culture is so stinky right now and is like, God still prevails, and so like nature submits to Him, and so like what it looks like to us doesn't have to be what happens. And I think that keeping that top of mind and trusting, like, oh my gosh, I can't wait, and being expectant, being like, instead of being like, yeah, I'm never gonna find someone, it's being like, I can't wait to see, like, wow, we've been waiting so long. This whoever's like it's gonna be so fire, like expectant, and that different heart posture changes everything. It changes your outlook. It changes the way you feel waking up. And I think that we do have a choice in that. And the never settle in marriage is like, you chose this person. It goes back to like, don't let it settle. Don't let that dust settle. Don't let it get complacent. Like, don't let your marriage get to that point where it's like, well, that's just my roommate, and we just like don't have like try to keep that intentionality that you had, and that feeling of like why is it different than it was in the beginning? Of course, there's years and growth and things you've been through, but that should, I think, only embolden that feeling.
For
and
sure.
So that, I think for me, it's never settle, and like and have that expectant, like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I haven't met my person yet. I can't wait to meet them, and that is going to be so awesome. Like, I am growing as a person every day, and so excited about the things I'm doing and my friendships and my relationships that I have. This is going to be so awesome when it comes, and not, I think
Why
that can
hasn't
change.
it?
Yeah. Instead of just that, it changes how you feel and how you're living day to day, and that matters too. You don't want to be miserable in the pursuit. You don't want to be miserable every day. And when I get that, I'm happy. It goes back to identity. You know, people in the industry, like, if I just get that, I'll be happy. No, you won't.
Right.
Of course, that's going to add to your life, but are you content right now? And I think that is what I would say.
Yeah, look at you, Miss
good.
Positivity.
Just bursting with it.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Negative energy.
No, I think I've grown a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's very tempting to settle.
Absolutely.
I think also when you know that you can,
for sure.
like, I'm sure that's really easy in marriage too. Like, it's easier even to settle. You're
just
like,
be
they're
like-
stuck with me. I don't have to
Yeah.
like do this. I don't have to write notes. I don't have to, you know.
I know, but I think when you experience like what it can be, you're like, well, yeah, I'll take the 10 seconds to write a note, or I'll
Right.
you know, fill up his water, but because it's like, because it makes him feel so good, which then makes me feel good, because then I'm getting the attention, or then I'm getting the what I want, and so then you're like, oh my
You're
gosh,
like,
this is so
you
fun.
reap the benefits.
Yeah, exactly. You reap
yeah.
what you sow.
It's really a selfish pursuit, is what I'm getting. It's really all about me. No. Yeah, I don't know. I think that why would you want that to be your everyday? Where like you're laying in bed next to someone, just like this dude. He's like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And also, if you're settling when you're dating before you get married, you're setting yourself up for that.
1,000%.
Like, then you don't even have,
Absolutely.
like, because you've already set the bar so low. So, like, once you're in it and you're committed to it, assuming that you believe that that's a lifelong commitment.
Right, yeah, for
like,
sure.
you've just shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be that much harder to get what you want out of that person when you settle.
When you already decided that
early on. Yeah.
you're fine with not getting what you want out of your
Right,
person.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you guys so much
Thanks for having
doing
us.
this. It's so good. Definitely follow them.
I think the best one to plug, which is at Zach and Carley, and that's on Instagram and TikTok.
Yes.
ZACH.
Yep.
Oh,
ZACH ANDCARLEY.
Yes,
So
and I'll
that's-
tag it too.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
tag it.
Well, oh my gosh, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we'll share all the things on ours for sure.
I'm so happy that y'all came.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
of
This is
course.
awesome. This is a
Thank
great
you
conversation.
guys.
Thank you.
And that's what he said.
That's what he said.
And
what
she
I
said.
And she said, we
Yes,
said.
yes. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to today's episode of That's What He Said. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you're taking away something valuable that will benefit your dating life. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this show a follow, rate, and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like this video, and most importantly, comment below, because I want to hear what you said. See you next time.